Hello friends, today we'll talk about two main topics, one for Ukraine and the second for the all European policy. Of course, we will start with this week analysis of this week from the confrontation between the office of president and the head of Ukrainian parliament, Dmitry Razumkov. This confrontation was escalated this week, and the head of presidential faction of Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine, David Arhamia, has begun collecting signatures for the resignation of Dmitry Razumkov, who, remind you, headed the Servant of People in the last parliamentary election in 2018. The fact that the David Arhamia requested subscriptions list means that the conflict between the office of president and the head of the Verkhovna Rada, which flared up behind the scenes of politics through 2021, is already moving into a public and frank plane. After all, both sides have repeatedly said before that there is no conflict, although there is a differences in positions. It becomes much more difficult to settle it in the future. Why exactly now the question of resignation has arisen? Because, firstly, the office of president is dizzy with success. It seems to them that they can absolutely do everything and they will get nothing for it. Secondly, in addition to the anti-oligarchic law, the parliament's agenda today includes a package of bills on budget agreements with the International Monetary Fund, judicial reform, the Minsk agreements, and etc., and a new constitutional reform that President of Ukraine wants to quickly pass through parliament, often ignoring the procedures and, the most important, the interest of people's deputy. And the independent head of Verkhovna Rada can be a serious problem in this process. Signature lists have been received today in order to take them to Truskovets, where these days the servant of the people gather for an important congress, informal congress, and there to use the authority and pressure of president and the heads of power structures like special security services, Minister of Internal Affairs, terrorist security services, etc., who also will come to Truskovets against the deputies in order to break their position, to force them to sign subscriptions lists and take upon themselves the obligation to successfully vote for resignation in parliament. By the way, this may also testify to that fact that today there are no votes for the Dmitry Razumkov's resignation, and there are not enough people willing to sign with the servant of the people. Therefore, the isolation of the deputies in Truskovets is necessary. Therefore, president is needed. Therefore, the security forces are needed to convince the deputy to support the resignation. The real reason for this resignation is not an anti-oligarchic bill. This is just an excuse. It stems from the logic of the process of consolidating power in the hands of Vladimir Zelensky and his office, and Dmitry Razumkov's competition with the office of president for influence on the political system. It should be understood that after Avakov's resignation, Dmitry Razumkov remained the only one alternative center of influence within the power team, and even then, which I said a few months ago. But for honesty talk, it is impossible to completely exclude a scenario in which the resignation of Dmitry Razumkov or the collection of signatures for this resignation play the role of simply an instrument of pressure and blackmail on the head of the Verkhovna Rada. This is happening against the backdrop of the fact that undervoted, undersigned law on oligarchs will soon lay on the table of the head of Verkhovna Rada, which Dmitry Razumkov is going to send to the president with all the blunders and mutually exclusive provisions which with it was adopted in parliament. In any case, this signature list, even if the party will agree with each other, will hang like a sword of Damocles over the head of Razumkov in case of this further disobedience. The resignation of Dmitry Razumkov is unlikely to cause a split in the Servant of People faction, although his support group and the group of sympathizers within the faction are quite large. But most of these deputies are on the party list, and for them leaving the faction will be a serious problem and take the risk of losing their deputy mandate. Although the example of Justice, how half of the former Voice faction could be borrowed by the part of Servant of the People. True, it will not pass without trace either, and at least it will lead to increased mistrust within the faction. In addition, the resignation of Dmitry Razumkov entails an even more serious problem with the appointment of his successor. After all, today the presidential successor, Ruslan Stefanchuk, is not popular not only in parliament, but also within the mono-majority faction. Stefanchuk is not always able, as the same anti-oligarchic law procedure has shown, to effectively, professionally and accurately organize voting within the parliament. Often it simply does not cope with Korny. And the appointment of the new head of parliament can be even more complicated procedure and problem than even the dismissal of Dmitry Razumkov. In case of resignation, of the fate of the Razumkov depends on his courage and the availability of support from the business, big business of course. He can as well as go into the political shadow or become a point of assembly of the political opposition in Ukraine. But not only about Ukraine we'll talk today, of course we'll talk about the new parliamentary election in Germany. Very brief for the election to the Bundestag. The first point of view we should remember and to accept that in the Bundestag are all the same 6 parties as in 2017. Social Democrats, Union, Free Democrats, Greens, Alternative for Germany, and Left Party. There are actually 2 winners. Both winners, it means the Social Democrats, 206 seats in the Bundestag, and the Union, or 196 places in Bundestag. Both parties can form their own coalition. The fragmentation of the political system of Germany has increased. There is no clear leader. The best result of Social Democrats is about 26. German society vote for the party in power, stability and predictability. The German voter never found a successor to the Merkel. The radical trend is also fading. Alternative for Germany right-wing party and the Linke left-wing party have lost their votes. Linke gets into the Bundestag only due to the specifics of German electoral system, a victory in 3 single-mandate constituents. In any case, there are 3 possible coalition options should be made in Germany. The first one is more possible. It's a traffic light coalition, so-called. It's from the Social Democrats, Free Democrats, and Greens. The second one, also very possible, Jamaica. It's Union, Free Democrats, and Greens. And the third one is nowadays a German coalition, which concludes Union and Social Democrats. Germany may be stormy for a long time, but the Chancellor Rada, how to call to the fight for the place of the future Chancellor in Germany. Since both the winners, the Social Democrats and the Union, will insist on their leader. Both of them during the election campaign positioned themselves as a successor of Merkel and not the competitors. Both Olaf Scholz and Armin Laschet have similar views on relations with the Russian Federation and Ukraine, a continuation of the Merkel's policy. Strategic balance and the containment of the Russian Federation, pragmatization and rationalization of relations with the Russian Federation without lifting sanctions and recognizing Crimea. Both have extensive personal contacts in Russian Federation. preservation of influence and transformation to Ukraine, supports the political diplomatic settlement in Ukraine, and the increase of the role of international organizations and platforms like Normandy 4 or OSCE, continuation reform in Ukraine, refusal of military support, and support for Ukraine's accession to the European Union and NATO. Of course, cards can mix. The crisis of the Cancellierade and early election, or the election of the leaders of Greens or Free Democrats as a chancellor, unlikely, and a sharp change in the geopolitical balance around Germany. Thank you, friends, for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe. See you next time. Bye.